Welcome to the webinar on getting around MMS. I'm Beth Elliott, your instructor today, and we'll be going over how to get around the staff portal and how that relates to getting around generations. So when you come into the staff portal, you have a filter that you can set of which students you want to look at. And these are basically whether you have your active students or all students, the sort order, different groups, and so on. And you can create as many filters as you want. If you have been set up this way, you can also change what school you are looking at, and you can change the school year, forward or backward. The other areas we have here is just to do a quick look around is the students area. There is an editing jobs, which is how I'm going to work with individual records. There is operations where I work with a group of records. And there are reports where I can print information or look at it from the various areas. In attendance, we still have the same editing jobs, operations, and reports, but they're also split between your daily attendance above the blue lines and your class attendance below the blue lines. Under scheduling, we have reports that we can pull out from here. We have operations that have to do, for the most part, with scheduling students. The automated schedule builder has its own set of areas that you can work with. Under grades, the editing that has been added here is the transfer courses and grades for students that have come in from a different school than yours, or maybe you're doing summer school. And then we have a few reports for grade reporting. Under skills, the grades is more a subject-based setup. The skills are Common Core, competencies, standards, skills, however you want to break it down. So not just math, but the pieces of math of what they're doing. So here we have just sort of the two areas. One is to view the skills and the skill groups. The other is a couple of reports. Under Manage, this is more the database configuration when I'm in MMS Generations, or it is School. So the school management jobs are things like editing the course catalog and areas here, and this includes setting up your filters. You can do some reports that have to do with the catalog and sections. You have configuration areas so that you can set up the system. And then this is where you would also come in for mail merge for biographical and attendance. The gradebook area gives you the ability to edit things like a school-wide announcement and some of the setup for your standards grading. You can do a report of the announcements, that's sort of a general. And then you can also, if you have been given permission, go into the teacher portal, into the teacher gradebook. Once you select a teacher, you can then look at some information. You won't be able to edit that information, but you will be able to see, say, a grid, the summary grid of how is the assignments looking at that particular class by student. So you can see all of the students and their assignment scores at once. The assessment would give you the ability to print an assessment scores report. This would be for assessments for things like your SATs or ACTs or any of the other state reporting that you want to be able to put in, or individual school reporting. You also have the ability to come in with a parent view where you can search for the students within that and say, I want to see pretty much what the parent is going to see when they log in. So it's a very nice area to be able to go around and see what's going. The last of the menu items that are up here is your help menu, where it'll tell you how to do things of what's here. The little Weeble up in the corner or the icon here gives you the ability where you can either log out, and if you have permission, you can change your password. So as a brief area, that's how you get around the system here. We'll go in a little bit more detail starting in the students, and we're going to go into the student profile, and that is an overall look for the student. So it gives you sort of more than just the biographic, because you get to view a little bit more. In here, you get to see just a little bit of the student profile at the top, which gives you the first contact, some base information like the homeroom the student is in and what team they're on, and how old the student is and their picture if it has been added for you. On the right, there are notes that are up here, And as you hover over each of the headings, you will see what the note is, what the label of that note is, and that's done under Manage Biographic. There is also some areas here on the right that are in red. And what that is those are special ed alerts. If it was the little apple, the heart gives you a health alert. And you don't see it very well, but it's a little calendar. It's a page calendar, and you can see if they have any attendance alert, if they have reached absence or tardy limits that have been set. You can print this information by going to the printer button. There is a base search here where you can pick the student from the list, and the list of these students or the order of the students in the list is based on the filter that you are in. You can go to the next student. You can go to the last student in the list. You can go to previous students just by backing up one at a time, or you can go back to the first student. You can also do a more advanced search, which is over here on your right. And in the advanced search, you can use information in any one of the columns, and you can sort on that column just by clicking on the top of it. So it's very easy to work with. If I want to limit based on a certain homeroom, I can type that homeroom in, and it's going to cut my list down to just that group of students, which makes it a lot easier to say, oh, I want to come in and look at Amy Abbiatici, or I want to do Alicia Glunk, and I can click there and click OK, and that's going to bring up that team member that's in that homeroom. As easy as that. And then I can always go back into the other area that I want to work with. As I scroll down, I'm going to see different information about the student. So in the contact details, I can see the contacts, and I can also see what's going on and get a picture of the contact if they have been loaded. Under the contact label, it lets you know what the label is or which contact this is based on the Manage of Biographic. You get the 3 phone numbers and an email address. As I continue down, I get their attendance detail. So for absences and tardies, I'm going to see the total, how many are excused, how many are unexcused with a total, how many consecutive are in a row, and then the statistics of possible attended and so on with a % attendance. To the right of that, it's going to give me my dates that the student has been absent, tardy or dismissed, with the code and the description, and if there was a time in or out, I'd be able to see that. Below that is going to give me her current schedule, and this will be, of course, in period order, and who the teacher is. If there was attendance for today, it would show me that, and it would show me the current grade that the student has earned. I can see a little bit of information, such as her nickname, if she has any, phone or email that has been set up for the student, and a little bit of family information. When I continue down, I'm also going to get her discipline, what sort of infractions she's had so far this year, with a count of how many infractions are there. And I can just scroll up and down and see what's going on. Below that are the school details, which is just homeroom and information such as that, advisor, information that a lot of this or some of this on the right side might have been on the student information too in MMS generations. And it's just that we're organizing it a little differently, more for the type of information it is. Below that is our transportation detail, which is information of how does the student get to school and or go home. And then if need be, and if they have any, you would see driver privileges and or a license plate number. And the last part here has to do with the user-defined tabs. So there are the potential to set up 12 user-defined tabs with 20 fields each. Now, some of these can be set up as read-only, and some can be totally disabled. Now, you might see that I don't have 12 tabs here because not all 12 are set up, or this particular user doesn't have access to one of the tabs. So it gives me that ability to go in and look and see what's going on. Now, if I scroll a little bit further right, there's more area over here where it lets me see which student I'm on, and I can hover over the name, get a little bit of the profile. And I also have double arrows, which allows me to go forward and back through the different students. So I'm now on Christine. So if I scroll up, I would see Christine's information instead of Amy's. So it lets me see that without a problem. You can edit within this profile. Now, you're not going to be able to edit anything such as the attendance discipline here, but I can edit the biographic. So I can add new students, I can delete a student. If you delete a student, it's going to delete them in all modules, not just the biographic. But it lets me see the information, and again, I can collapse all and then pick out the information that I want to see. Now, if I go down to the auxiliary details, you remember that first one had some base information? It's not here because that one was set up as read only. So when I'm in an edit, I don't even see it because I know it's read only. When you look at your contacts information, you're going to be able to fill in the various pieces that are here. You'll have a tab for each of the contacts that are listed, and then it's a fill in the information. One of the new things we just added was the ability to indicate which of the phones is your texting phone that you want to send text messages to and who is the carrier. So that's a new piece that you can now track for your contacts. If I look at my transportation, that's just the information to and from. How did they get to school? How did they get home? Driver privileges if they're taking the bus either in the morning or in the afternoon, bus number and stop. The school details has information about grade level, homeroom, year of grad, and these are set up in generations for your valid data selection. So it gives you a way to be able to come in and fill that information in. The student details is your base information about the student. So their name, which family they are, the birth date and location. And there was a new area here where we've added a phone type and a phone number for this student, along with their email address. So you have that capability. So it just lets you come in and wander through. Other areas is you'd be able to edit your family code, and family codes are a way to group the students together by their family. And what's nice with that is if I do an address change or a phone number change for one student in the family, it'll prompt me to say, do I want to push it out to the other members of the family? Your mass edit is an area where you can come in and say, assign homerooms or other information. You can also do a find a student, which is a really handy item. The find a student gives you the ability to look at the database and go across all school years. So if I typed in the beginning of a last name, and it's as much as I want to fill in, I can tab over here, type some more, and say, oh, I want to find anyone who matches that information. And I can come in and say, oh, I found one record from the 12-13 school year at the middle school, and I'm currently at the high school. If I scroll a little bit further right, I have a copy record, and that's going to give me the ability to copy the record from the school that it is in and the year into the current school and year that I'm in, which is great if you have a student who is returning, or if you're not sure if they were here in a prior year, you can go do a search. Now, if I had not filled in all the information, if I took out the beginning of the first name, I can hit find, and now I'm going to get a list of the students by school year and by school. So I can see the information of who's where. So it might be that I don't have the exact spelling, but it gives me an area where I can go in and look. And I could still highlight the record of the student I'm looking for and then scroll right and do the copy. So it gives that capability to work with that. It's a really handy feature. The nice thing with the copy is we keep the same ID number, which helps when we're doing things like transcript or bringing over health records. The other items we can do here in the student area is the mass edit biographic, as I said, was where we can actually not just do a copy or put in some data, but you can also do a move data to put that in. You can copy it, you can put it in, you come in and say which field you want to edit, So if I was putting in, say, a homeroom, I could type in the beginning of that. So it's going to give me the name of the field, the description of that field, and what table it's in. EMF is my student master table. If there is valid data, like the homeroom is coming from the room table, it will then allow me to pick information from that list, including a blank if I wanted to clear. I could set an additional condition to say how I want to limit who I'm going to put this in. And then I can add more than one condition down here. And I can do parentheses, I can end an or between. So there's a lot more area that I can work with and be more specific of who I'm looking for that I want to change. So I could just put data into a field. I can move data from one field to another, which means I take it from the first field and I move it to the second field. So I copy it into the second field and then I erase it from the first field. The copy is I'm just going to copy it from one to another and leave it in the first field. So it gives me options that I can work with that. Deposit homerooms allows me to take a specific day and period. So I can select which week of my schedule, so week 1 potentially, and I could say take first period on Mondays, and I want to draw the room that's in the first period class into the homeroom field. And I can optionally say, oh, also give me the homeroom teacher is going to be the teacher name from the field that's in that schedule. And for students who are not in a class, do I want to put anything as a room to put them in? And do I want to assign them a teacher? So it's a nice quick way to load up my homerooms and homeroom teachers based on their schedule. So it gives me that capability. A compare and update for new school year gives me the ability to take existing data and push it out to other school years. Because it's under the student rather than in an admin function, the difference here is I have the highlighted option by default is for the selected data fields. I want to go from the school and year that I'm in and push it out to other schools. And I can now go across school boundaries in here. So if I had rolled to the high school from the middle school in February for my scheduling purposes, but there have been address changes or phone number changes for the middle school students that went to the high school, I have the ability to say, oh, I want to come from the middle school, and I can go back to 14-15, and I can now say that I want to move from 14-15 into 15-16. And I want to do that not only for the middle school, but also for the high school. So I can come in and say, I want to do one or more of these. So it gives me the ability to say, yes, I can copy the data from one year to another and now go across school boundaries, which is really nice. And I can pick which fields I want to copy. My settings is where I can set up what I want to work with. So if I can do that, I can go into the settings and I can add a new setting for what I want to do here and put in a description. So maybe I want to do my contact information. It's going to know who I was logged in as, and that becomes the creator. Whether the setting is locked or not is, can someone other than the creator save those settings? If it is locked, then only the creator can save. And I can go ahead and say I want to save these settings and close out. Now I haven't finished setting them up. So I can scroll down and say, oh, give me my contact information. So I want to come in here for all of my contacts. And all of the contact setup starts with contact, which is kind of nice. So I can take all my contacts and move them over to the right. So that's what I want to update. I don't want to change things like the grade level or homeroom teacher from the prior year into the new year. because they aren't the same, but I would like to take the contact information. And now that I've started to set that up, I can go back into my settings and I can save it again. The next time I come in, all I need to do is do the recall settings, and that will allow me to bring those back. So we put the save and recall all in the same place. So I'm going to go ahead and close, and I can work from there. Now, when we work with this compare and update, it's only going to do it if it finds the same student in the other target years and or target school. So even though I said I want to go from the middle school and I can say I want to go to the high school, it's only going to do it if the high school has that record. So if the student stayed at the middle school and is not at the high school, it's not going to do anything, which is really nice. The other reports I have under student are things like the list by field report versus a student record listing or a birthday list. A change that's in the list by field report that's here in the portal is I can pick the field I want to work with. So I might want to be doing it based on, say, the ethnic field. I want to get a list of students by their ethnics. And nobody has any. So let's do it by something else. So there's the homeroom field, and I want to select those. In generations, I can either do all of them or one specific one. What's nice in here is I can come in and say, oh, I want to see this homeroom and this homeroom, so I want to print those two. I can still include my inactive students, and I can bring additional information in if I want. So if I go ahead and print, I can also get counts or just get the information on the student. So it gives me a quick way to see what's going on with this. Now under attendance, you have a lot of the setup for attendance is here in attendance, and we can create calendars. What's really nice with the edit calendars is it gives you the ability to add information, and you can copy calendars from one to another. You can do your calendar code edit, the calendar ID code editor. And one of the things you can put in the calendar ID code editor is it allows you to flag which calendar is the default calendar if you have more than one. I'm in the middle school, so I only have one calendar. If I close out of here and I go to the high school has multiple calendars, and I can specify which is the default so that when I'm adding a new student in, it's going to use that one by default. You can copy and paste between calendars, so if I did have multiples, it would let me see that. Excuse me, wrong year. There we go. So I have multiple calendars, and I can do a multi-calendar edit, which gives me the ability, say, if I had a snow day, that I could come in, specify the date that I want to work with, and maybe there was something that went on at school that I needed to put something in. As I could come in here, select the date, change the units, and put in whatever the reason is that it's becoming a non-school day. And then I could, if I want to, I could click the check above, and that highlights all of my calendars, and I can set up the whole thing all at once. So it gives that capability. And the items I want to include are the items that are checked. So it's a nice feature to have. So it gives different areas that you can work with. You can set up the various codes that you need between the daily attendance codes versus my class attendance codes, entry withdrawal registers or comments. The initial entry is here where you can say I need to give everybody their entry codes for the year. I can mass assign attendance. So if I had a bunch of students, say maybe on a homeroom that were going on a field trip, I would have the ability to select that homeroom and say everybody on that homeroom is going on a field trip. I can change my entry withdrawal records. If I did not put my register codes in when I gave everybody an attendance code, I could come in here and add in a grade level register code or some other code that's based on other information. You can come in here to transfer your attendance summary totals to go from the daily attendance and set up totals that I can then put on my report card. And just as we could mass assign daily attendance, we can also mass assign class attendance. Because it could be that everybody who's in the culinary program is going on a field trip to a local culinary school to have a feel for what's going on. And then we can get various reports, such as the daily bulletin. And what's nice now is you don't have to be a teacher when you're in the staff portal to get the daily bulletin. You can just click on the daily bulletin and take a look of what's going on. So when I come into the daily bulletin, I can use the default MMS setup, or I can go into my settings and recall any setting that was already set up. So I can come in here and say, I want to recall this setting. Lets me know it was successfully recalled, and I can close. And the bulletin is things like I want to show all of my daily codes. And then in the setup, I can say which fields I want to see and how long they're going to be. And then it lets me, based on the font size and the number of columns, it lets me know how many characters allowed, what I've used, and what remains. So it gives me that capability to come in and see what's going on. And then for the cumulative absences, if I'm working with that, I can also set my starting and ending dates. So it would give me that capability. And I might want to just change that to the 5, and then I can go back up and print. So it makes it nice that I can come in and see that information. And there's a list of the students with what I want to see. Now you can have multiple bulletins. This one gives the code of the student, their time in and out, the first set. How many consecutive absences, which is based on today going backwards, how many school days have they been out, versus what is my cumulative absences. You can also do a list that would give, say, the student name just for those students that are absent. And then I can bring in things like the parent name and phone number, so I have an absent call list if I want to do a manual list. This can also be a setting that I want to use, that I would then have it where it would set up so that the messaging can call for me if I'm using a messaging system like OneCall now. So it gives that area that I can work with. One of the other reports that you can run under the attendance is the Teacher Online Status Report. And what that does is that's going to show which teachers have done their attendance, and or I can give a list of only those who have not submitted attendance for the day that I'm working on. And the default is it's going to do the current day. And I can do it strictly on homeroom, I can do it on class attendance, or I can do it on both. So it gives me that capability. And if I'm doing class attendance, I can set a period range for what I want to work with. Now this will show things like whether the teacher hit the all present button or the attendance confirmed. So they did go in, looked at who was on the list, saw which students were, everybody was there, and hit a button that says attendance all present. So it does make it easy for you to be able to come in and see what's going on. In scheduling, there's a little bit here that I'm working with where I can do things like my class lists. Some of this is for the scheduling purposes of setting things up, but I can come in and see teacher schedules or the teacher's master schedule. The difference is, do I have one teacher per page or do I have multiple teachers per page? You can come in and update your class enrollments or the study hall enrollments so that when it says how many students are in the class, we can make sure that is up to date. Most of these others have to do with actually scheduling students into classes. Now, the area that I have here, I do not have the access in the portal, but I do in Generation to mass assign students into classes. So there are some things that are still in Generations. The grades lets me, as I said earlier, transfer the courses, transfer courses and grade. So for those students that came in from outside, I'd have something to do with that. I can print a standards report card. where if I have standards associated or Common Core items associated with the course, I can actually print a report card that uses that information so that I would see the subject grade and then the standards for the marking periods that I've specified below that. The standards grade report is just I want to see the grades of what's going on. I can do a graduation requirements report where I can see, is the student on track at, say, the high school for graduation? So I can set up in the department, in the grade reporting and generations, I can set up how many credits they need in each of 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. You can now also see a failure missing report. So once the first marking period grades are in, I can do a very quick report to see which grades are still missing, which students failed a course, or maybe who has an incomplete that I need to go back to the teacher and get filled. Or I can print my honor roll list. The skills, if the particular school has their skills report card set up, you can actually go and view individual students for their skills themselves. You can assign the skill groups to the courses, so I can come in and say, oh, for this course, I want to put in these particular skill groups to associate what they're working on. And I can also print report cards, preview or print the report cards either on an individual student basis, in which case I'm going to see the list of students. And let me go to a school with skills. So I can see the student and I can preview their report card on an individual basis. You can also do a student range if you so choose. Opposite of that is I can do the batch printing, which is going to give me the ability to select the report card I want to print, and it's then going to show me the students who have that report card. And based on the filter, that's what order the students are going to print in. So if I want to print them in homeroom order, then I want to change to a homeroom filter. Do that first and then select the report card, and now the students are in homeroom order. The manage, as I said, this is sort of a combination of some of what's in school management and generations and some of what is in database configuration. I can edit the course catalog sections or departments and create filters. I can do reports on pretty much that information. The configure is things like under the configure biographic. That gives me the area for the student to say, what are the labels of my notes? And are any of those an alert note? The alert might be information on, there might be a court order that I need to be aware of, or some other information that I need to be aware of, so I can flag a particular one or more of the notes as an alert, and they'll show up more in red when I was in the student profile. And here I can say how many of the student, how many contacts do I want per student, and what do I want to label them. Recommendation is that the labels are the same across the schools in your district. You don't have to have the same number of contacts across your district, but the ones that you do have that are across, it would be great if the labels are the same. So as you move the students from the elementary to the middle school to the high school, and usually as you go up the chain of grade levels, that's where normally you would have more contacts. Otherwise, it's going to drop it. You might have had contact 6 in the elementary, but only 5 in the middle school, in which case you would lose the 6th contact. There is an option to turn off the editor so that if you update a contact record that it won't feed it to the other students in the same family. There are instances where schools would like to do that. When I'm in the configure attendance, this is where you can do things like set up that which way that you are taking your attendance, effective dates, and so on, and also where you can set the settings for which bulletin, say the daily bulletin, the teachers see versus the staff members see. So it makes it easy for various areas to be put in there. There are alerts here that give you, where I said earlier that in this case, if there were 10 absences total, I want to trigger an alert. And I might come in and say, oh, I also want to see an alert if there are 5 or more unexcused absences, where the total absences are both excused and unexcused. And I can put a start date when I start counting those numbers. There is a tardy dismiss slips and email that's available here that gives me the ability to say, oh, if I'm doing daily attendance entry, then I want to be able to print out a tardy slip when the student comes in with an indication of report directly to this period's class. You can do the same sort of text message if you want that goes with it if you have a dismissal. And as I scroll down, there's also the ability right here to set up an on-demand versus automatic email settings where I can say which areas do I want to email the parents to let them know that there was maybe not a straight absence, but maybe I want to let them know about unexcused absences, tardies, and dismissals. Because on a not on an unexcused, but on an excused absent, usually the parent already knows about it. And then you can say which contacts you want to contact. And I'm going to say all of them that are eligible. And there are brief messages that you can add to that, so it's preloaded for you. Once I save that, if I go into attendance and I go into my daily attendance entry, I can come in here, mark a student absent, or say Nate here was tardy. He was unexcused tardy. I can right-click, put in the time, and now under this print send, there's a little area where I can click on that, and it's going to set it up to say where I want them to go. And I can go ahead and generate that slip. So here it is. It's going to give me what's going on and show me which school it's coming from. If not so much on an elementary, but more in a high school, it would also show not only the current class, but the next class that they should be going to. And you can also come right over here and send the email. And you can, the default, as we said, send it to all of them that are eligible, but I can pick and choose and know that, okay, I really only need to send it to Rhonda here. And it gives me that capability. So it makes it nice to be able to come in and do that sort of information. As I said, on the grade book, it gives areas. Actually, one other thing under manage is the mail merge. Mail merge has been changed with the staff portal so that you can build your data source. So basically, it's similar to the skills report card where you can come in and say, here are the fields I want to use, and then I can manage my templates. So I'm basically saying, this is what I want to set up. Here's the letters where I've either uploaded or downloaded them so I know what to work with, and then I can actually merge and do the print send at that point and say that's what I want to do. And what's really nice with this is if I go into the build data source files, I'm going to change back to the high school. But this gives me the ability to say these are the fields I want to use. So if I had the mail merge, the title is going to be the name of my data source file. And what's nice is I also have quick links here. So rather than having to go back up to manage and over to the mail merge area, I have links that are right here to send me there. So I can set up which files I want. The manage the letter template is I can say which one it is. Is it coming from the biographical, or if I'm doing my certain attendance? And some of those attendance reports are an overall, and then I have some that are set up for just today. Or I can do a label. So I can actually have two different templates. I can have one template for the letter itself and a different template for the label. And I can either upload those templates or I can download them. So somebody else might have uploaded the letter. I'm going to download, work on it, and then upload it again once I've done my changes. And then you can go over to your print and send where I can say, here's the letter that I'm going to work with. And then here's the label that I have. One is for the template type and the letter, and then I can do the same thing for my labels. So it's all combined here. And what's nice with this is it is a full Word document that you are setting up for your labels, for your letters rather, so that you can highlight certain areas, you can bold it, you can do all sorts of formatting that you want to work with. So it's greatly increased as far as the functionality of this. If I skip over to the parent view and I do a search, I can come in and either look on an individual basis, so I can type in the beginning of the name and search, or I can hit a letter. And it's just going to show me the students that match that letter. So if I come into Amy, I can see the information. So besides the main menu at the top, I now have two submenus, or potentially two, for the other information of what the parent is going to see. So when I come in for Amy, I see a list of her courses. If I click on one of those courses, I would get a progress report. I can also see what is her current term grade, what is her average for the year, or what could be the current final average, which is an estimation of what the final grade is going to be. I can see how many assignments are graded and if there are any that are missing. Also up here, I can come in and look at the missing assignments. And these are assignments that the teacher has flagged that are missing. And if the due date is passed, it's going to show in red. So it gives you that. You can also come in and see all the assignments due, not only for the one class, but for all classes. And you can see course announcements again across all areas. So some of this has more than others. I can come in, click on geometry, and see I have a syllabus, I have a missing assignments policy, and also have a permission slip. So I can come in, see what's going on, and the teacher can put in as much of this as they want. So it just gives an area. And that can include, by the way, hyperlinks to, say, the teacher's website or a school website if you wanted to in here. And then I could go back to my courses to see a full list for them. Under attendance, I have the ability to see areas that are set up for daily attendance, the daily history, which is the totals that I saw when I was in under students profile, but this is coming from the teachers, the parent side rather. I can see their classes with the class totals, or school events, which are the notes that are on the calendar. The behavior, and you can set up what labels you want to use. The behavior would be a discipline report. You would see the ability to see the student's schedule. So maybe here you're seeing the current one, but you might want to see the future. So if you had semester courses versus year courses, you'd have that capability. You can set up which subject-based report card you're seeing here, a transcript that can go across multiple years, or a standards report card. And when you set up your grading, when I was up here under grades and I was doing the standards report card, I can specify which one I want to use when I'm in here for the parents. Which standards report card do they get to see? The personal information is a little bit about their biographic. The thing to remember right now when you're looking at personal information is if you include contact information, you might want to be aware of which contacts that you're showing. If you have non-custodial parents that are not supposed to have the other parent's information. And then you can come in and set up for graduation requirements. If when the parent logged in, it was set up so they could do their course registration, that too would be a different login, and they would have graduation requirements with the course registration. So there's a lot of information that you have here that you can have access to. If I go back into the grade book, I can select a teacher and then go look at that teacher. So I can scroll down, say if I want to pick on Hobble. I can now go back, I can see the announcements that the teacher would see. So even though I'm in the staff portal, it welcomes me to the teacher portal because I'm now coming as if I was a teacher. I would be able to change to different courses for that teacher. I could come back into the grade book and do things like the summary grid where I'd be able to see what's going on for that teacher in the current area. Now this is grayed out because I'm logged in as a staff member and I can't modify grades. But it lets me see what's here, and I can even go back to prior marking periods if I so choose. So it gives me a way to do a quick look. So before, when I was on the parent view, I was looking at a single student. Now I can, by coming into the teacher view, I can see how the student is doing in relation to their classmates. So it just gives me a different view of what's going on. And I can come in and look at different information like the login statistics. The login statistics is going to show me how often for each student has either the student logged in or their parent logged in. Now, it doesn't mean that they've actually come in and looked at this particular course, but it lets me see how often. Now, I happen to know that Rhonda has 4 children in the school system. So she might or might not have looked at Amy's courses. She might have looked at Christine or one of her other 2 students that are at the elementary school. But it does let me see how often has the parent logged in. So it's kind of neat to be able to see that information. The assessments would be if I was putting in scores. So I might have ACT or SAT scores. I'm going to come in and select only Amy. So what I did to unselect is by default when you come in, all students are selected. I unchecked at the top of the check column. So now I have only the students I want. And I can check the individual students. I'm going to click OK. And right now I'm selecting everything. I want all occurrences for all of the dates that are out there. I can include my withdrawn and so on. And I'm just going to, there we go. So I want to go ahead and print. So this is going to show me for Amy, for her ACT, the various scores that are out here. So I can set that up. Now this can be set up that the teachers can see it. And you can save a setting for them. That's part of a configuration that's set up in the admin portal. So it gives options for you can see what's going on. And that's pretty much what you can do getting around for the staff portal. And I'm going to swap over to the generations itself. So when I come in here, I can open my database. There's a lot of this that's the same as I just was in the staff portal. So which filter I'm in, which school I'm in, and which school year is the same. Here under the edit, what I have here are the individual student editors. So there's my biographical editor. I can actually come into the attendance, which is daily, class attendance, the student schedule, the grade editor, their discipline, and if I have any fees. If this user is set up for it, they can get into the health information. So I can go into a daily log, medications, immunizations, health history, or screenings for physicals, height, weight, the BMI type screenings. I can go into hearing, vision, spine for scoliosis, lead testing, things like that in there. You can set up appointments so that the appointments could be that it's the students coming in for medications or other care. And you can also set it up so guidance can put in appointments for them to see the students about different things going on. The different menus at the top here is you have your basic file menu, and some of them when you see the icon that's beside it, it's the same as the buttons that are on the system. So I could open my database versus close the database. I can come in and edit, and because I'm not in an editor right now, it's grayed out. I can come into help, which includes the table of contents, or I can even do things like the About MMS. And in the About MMS, I have an area where I can see what's the version of the software. I have the hours that the office is open. We have the website. We have the email addresses for sales support and training. So it gives you different areas that you can get into. The jobs here, I had student when I was in the staff portal. So edit student biographical records was the student profile without some of the information. My more biographical edits, editing the family codes is the same on both sides. There was the print biographical record listing and the list by field, which I just said those in opposite order. So my print biographical list by field report, where I could do, say, a homeroom list or things like that. Or the student record listing, where I can print basically all the information about the student. Here are my editing jobs versus my reports or my operations. So the mass edit that I had in the staff portal is also here. The daily attendance and class attendance are combined in the staff portal for the jobs that you had listed, and they are split out here a little bit different. But I could edit my student records, do the daily attendance, and things like that. So some of that is still here. There are items in the schedule. A lot of the scheduling is in the staff portal, but my grading, I have a lot of the setup that has to be done here. And that includes setting up the grade schemes, which is which grade fields do I have with what area, the valid grades, and so on. Under school, that's where we were going into manage. The school area has the catalog and the sections and departments in the staff portal, but my term definitions and my staff I have to edit here along with my rooms. So there's just areas that are, some things are on both, some are on the individual. If I go into say a student editor here, any type of editor, individual editor, brings up the record menu, and that allows me to go to the first student prior, show the locate the student, which gives me a way to come in. So it sort of combines that advanced search, because I can still sort on any column that's in here, along with the list of students that I can come in to pull somebody up. So this is the same as I had on the portal. And I also have my add a record, delete, put the changes back. And if I go up here to the record menu, I'm going to see all of those same buttons, but it's also going to show me the shortcuts I can use to put that information in. So if my hands were already on the keyboard, I could do a Control-L to go locate who I'm looking for. So that can be a handy feature to have. The little camera brings up a profile on the student. So it's a different format of the same information. The user-defined tabs here, when I'm in, this was the auxiliary information. And here on things like the tab facts, it's going to show me it's read-only versus other information where I would be able to edit that. So in the user-defined tabs, you're going to be able to see the information that's here. And some of these can be set up so that they are drop-downs, which is really handy. Now, if you're finding that when you log into Generations, because we're starting a new school year, that you're coming into the wrong school year, you're coming into last year instead of this year, you can come in under Admin and go to My Preferences. It will close the database, but you will then have options normally to be able to change your default school year. And then the next time you log in, that's the year you're going to log into, which is really handy to have when you start up a new year. You might also have access for setting up your user-defined tabs. You might not, but you might. And that's in a different webinar for doing the admin functions. So I just wanted to touch on that. Your favorites are in Generations are the things you do most often. And you can do modify favorites and add items to this. So I could come in to say the student information and say that I want to check, because I do mailing labels a lot, so I want mailing labels to be on my favorites. And if I'm in attendance and I do, or if I'm in grades and I want to do some other information that I need to be able to compute, I can scroll down and say, oh, I want to come into my operations and I want to throw on the compute honor roll, compute credits, compute GPA and rank, and maybe even my term and semester averages. So I can click OK. Those then come into the list. I can rearrange the order if I want, just by clicking and holding and moving things up and down. And now when I click OK, those items come into my favorites so I can get at them real quick. Whether these favorites show or not, if they don't show for you, you can come in under File and turn or hide or show the favorites when you log in. And the system will remember that for you. So it's just a nice quick way to be able to turn things on and off. The turn web link on is that if I do certain functions in generations that are available in the staff portal, when I turn the web link on, when I click on that menu item here in generations, it's actually going to bring me into the staff portal. And it will log me in so it'll know what I'm doing there. But it gives options to be able to come in and see what's there. So we went through the editor tool button, which is the same. Now some items that I'm in, like if I go under school and I edit the course catalog, sometimes I'm going to get some extra information like to view courses by the code or the name. So the default is I'm going to look at the code. But I can change this and say, oh, I want to put this in name order. And when I go up to the stack of folders to locate a record, it's going to do the same thing. So I can search. I want to come into my list of fields here and type BIO. So now I can go into biology. And I can bring up my Biology 1 class. So it's just a quick way to be able to search on a couple of different things. Now some of the items, which here where we have a couple of distinctions here, I have a save and I have a save and exit. The save is I'm going to save the change that I did. So I might want to change my GPA level, but I want to stay in the editor. The save and exit says I'm saving it, I'm getting out. So it's one click and it gets me out, saves the information and gets out. If I go to another record, it automatically saves for me. If I hit the X in the corner, this will close, and if I haven't saved, it's going to ask me, do I want to save the changes, yes or no, or do I want to cancel? So in this case, if I wanted to save the changes, I would have to click yes. So I did one click for the X and one click for yes. Where if I came in here and did the save and exit, it's just one button that gets me out. So it's one click instead of two. So it just gives me some options to be able to work with that. Now if I do a report, so maybe I want to come in here and under school management reports, I want to do a staff mailing labels. So I want to print some information because I'm going to send a mailing out. Depending on your staff, you have your instructional staff versus non-instructional. For a label, I can pick the type of label I want. It defaults to what's basically your Avery 5160, or it can be set up for dot matrix, which is a pin feed. But if I go ahead and print, I'm going to be able to see some information about what's going on here. Now we have sort of the same type of arrow situation I had on the editor where I can go to the next page, go to the last page, the first page, the prior page, or pick which page number I want to go to. If I go to the last page, it's going to show me up at the top what page number I'm on. I can zoom, and the zoom here is you don't get to pick which zoom you're at. It just does a zoom out for you. If you hit the door here, it's going to close the preview, so I stop seeing it. If I hit the printer button, it's going to let me print it and pick which printer I want to go to. So it gives me that option to be able to say. And some of these might be redirected because I am in a remote desktop connection. If I hit the door, I'm just going to close out of the preview. And if I hit the little X here, all it does is it closes that little menu, but it doesn't get me out. I can either hit my escape key or hit the sort of the lower X to get out of there. So it does give me that capability when I'm in there. So you've got different areas with that. You also, which I didn't go through, if I go back to my reports, under the staff, any of these listings, there is an output option. The output option gives me the ability to print the report straight to whatever is my default printer. Preview to screen is what I was doing. You can also put it out to a text file, to a PDF, or to an Excel file. And depending on what I'm doing, I might have an additional option here, which is to email the report. So the mail merges, the report cards or schedules, those are items that we can email to the parents so that they have a PDF copy. There is an option to do a user copy of a report if you wanted to change the form, and not all of them are handy for that, but we do have that option in Generations if you need to. So it just gives you some extra information. Now some of these, like the staff listing, there is actually multiple reports that you can pick. The summary is just give me a list. I can do the notes, or I can do things like the scheduling constraints for Automated Schedule Builder. So some items are going to have multiple things in them, some are not. So your admin here, the manage when we were doing configuration was the database configuration. There is additional configuration here in Generations that has not been moved to the portal yet. So things like the grading gives me the ability to turn on if I'm doing a standard or subject-based grading versus the skills-based. I would have to turn this on in order to get the skills menu. You can set up some information for health, and there's more of this that we will be going into when we do our admin area. So there are areas that we can track. So there are things in both for what we're looking at. And I realized the one thing I didn't show in Generation in the portal was help. Now in Generations, if I was in working, say, with my mailing labels, I can actually go to the question mark, and it's going to bring up context-sensitive help, which means it knows exactly where I am, and it's going to bring up help on it. Now, if I was in different areas, such as the student biographical editor, depending on the tab I'm on, it's going to bring me in straight into the tab that I was working with. So the help is very much, it knows where I'm at. So if I come back into the staff editor, I can also come in and say, oh, I need help on doing assessment scores. So it's going to be able to break it up and say, here's the help on that. So it gives me information on what it's going to work with. And I can do a show and see all of my help area. So I can max that out and come into different areas of the staff. So it gives me areas. So if I wanted to go into student, I would come in to say, oh, here's my student profile. I want to edit the student profile. It's going to give me information on what's there. So again, my help is context sensitive. So it knows where I am on the system, and it's going to bring me up help for that. If I go into my, say, student record listing, here in the biographical, I can pick my student range. And I can also say what information I want to work with. In the portals, I have the ability to bring in 4 additional biographical fields. The Generations report is going to bring up the set information that's in the different areas for the editor. But in here, I can say, oh, give me some extra information. So maybe I need to see the SPED code for the student, or maybe I want to see the free and reduced lunch, so the economic disadvantage status. Interesting. Let's do ethnic instead. So I can pick the fields, I can label them. So if I don't want to see SPED code because that doesn't make sense, I can come in here and say this is special ed. I can also bring in additional contact fields if I'm printing certain information for the contacts. I can include the core biographical information, And I can include my inactive students, because by default, when I do most of my reports, they have to be active in that module. So if I was in an all-student filter, which includes my inactive student that left partway through the school system, I would potentially want to be able to include those inactive students. And I can also opt to do a new page for each student. The bottom, it lets me pick which notes, either all of them or some of them that I want to print. And I can say which contacts. So I'm going to print all my contacts and all my notes. I could save those settings if I want, and I'm going to go ahead and print. So when I print, I see this is the core information for the student. So I have their name, their birth date and age, year of grade level, ethnic, other information that I want to see for the students, their mode to school. So here's my transportation information, driver information that goes with the transportation, and so on. The biographical active, inactive statuses that give me the ability to see am I active or not in those modules. There was the extra special ed field, and then my notes. And then below that is the start of the contact information. Now most of it's like the city, state, zip is combined. Here the street number and the street address are set up separately, but it does let me see the information that's here. And I can go to the next page. So here my toolbar for the report is a little bit different. I'm always seeing how many pages I have right up front. I can go straight to the printer, or I can output to either a PDF, a comma delimited file, comma separated value, which is a text file, or I can go to Excel. Now if I pick any one of those and I go to export, where it exports and how it exports depends on the browser that I'm using and how my settings are set up. Mine is set up so it's going to ask me where to save the file. Others, it might just automatically save into, say, the downloads folder, but that's going to be a browser setting. Now, where I was doing a specific student, I might want, when I save the file, to change the name so I know exactly who it is. But it does give me that option to be able to work with that. And depending on the browser depends on where I would go to do those settings. So it gives you options for that. So here, my output option in effect is right at the top of the report, where in generations there is a button that I would set ahead of time. Now if this parent has logged in, the parent is not going to have the export capabilities. The parent is only going to have the print capability. And things like the report cards are going to have straight across, diagonally across, that it was printed from the school website, so they know where that's going from. And if I was in here where I'm doing the student record listing and I go to help, it knows I'm working on the student record listing, so it's going to bring that up. Other avenues for help that you can go into is if you go into the MMS website, which is cri-mms.com. When you come in here, you can go in and go to the knowledge base or the video learning center, and that's going to give you areas that you can go look up information. You don't have to be logged in. You can just go ahead and say, go to the portal and say, oh, I want to look at stuff for the staff portal. So I'm going to type in staff portal and say, go search for that. And it's going to bring up answers for the staff portal. So I can see what's coming up for different things in the staff. You know, how do I set up attendance totals report in the staff portal? How do I run a failure missing report? And I can just click on that and see what's here. And I can see related articles to this one. And I can come in this browser. I can open my menu and print it if I so choose. So it gives me options to be able to get at that information. If I go back to home, I can also go to the Video Learning Center for the Tech Bites. Tech Bites are usually 5 to 15-minute items on how do I do a specific item. So for a teacher, how do I change or enter attendance by chart? So a nice quick, this is how I do to set up and take attendance with the seating chart. And I can scroll down and say, oh, I want to do the grade portal, a couple of the grade portal reports. How do I enter attendance by list in the staff portal? So it gives me ways to see what's going on. And here are ones that are done for the teachers. If I scroll down, I can see the ones for staff. So configure attendance in the staff portal. In some of these, there are multiples, that there are, different areas that I need to work with to do that. And then I can come down which ones are in the admin area. And if you don't see something that you would like, you can always fill in information and let us know. If you have a webinar subscription, I can look at the full-length webinars, recorded webinars. And so these are going to do, instead of 5 to 15 minutes, these are closer to an hour and a half. And again, we'll be able to enter information to see what's here. So it gives options to be able to see areas that you can work with. And some of these are the state reporting modules. And you can come into other videos. So it does give you options to be able to look at that, depending on what you have. If you have logged into the website, and that is with a district account number, you have areas for things like the downloads and updates. These are the latest versions of our software. And what's nice is if I'm coming into a specific, say, state module, or even the web portals, I can click on the web portals. It's going to bring me up with the most recent information, and it'll have things like, oh, here are my release notes. So I can see what's new in that version. I can also scroll down and get to the documentation. Now for the web portals, the documentation is a zip file with 4 different manuals in there. So for things like the staff portal or the teacher portal, you can actually give those particular users their specific manual saying, here you go. This is the information that you need to look at. If I was in one of the state modules, I would have the current download at the top, and then when I scroll down, there are the manual at the bottom that I can view the download of it. So you just click on it. It's going to bring up the full manual. And as you scroll down, these are also interactive. So if I have the table of contents, these table of contents are actually hyperlinked. So if I scroll down into my area at the bottom, or maybe, so there is an appendix. And in the appendix, there is information on the templates. So if I want to look at my PIMS templates, that's going to give me for each of the exports the field as the state is looking for it, what field number it is in the file, and it's going to give you the corresponding MMS field, which can be really helpful if I'm trying to figure out, oh, something happening with my honors courses aren't coming up the way I want. I can now go find what is that field to make sure I have the right information in it. And at this point, again, depending on the browser, I can come in here and hit the download, or I can actually go print it. Depends on what you need. So that information is right available for you. So we thank you for participating in this webinar, and I hope you found it helpful.